Hi, Bharath. Welcome to the Solutions Podcast. So good to have you on.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for inviting me to the podcast. I'm excited and happy to be here.
Great. Well, I'm really excited as well, and I'm excited to learn more about you and what you're doing. And so why don't we just jump right into it? And could you start by telling us about yourself, your background, and your journey in IT?
Cool. Yeah. So, about myself, I'm actually a IT professional, an author of the best-selling book Ego and Empathy. I'm a life and wellness coach. I also do keynote speaking. Uh, but I hail from India, a southern part of India, Hyderabad. Uh, Once I finished my engineering degree, I moved on to Dublin, Ireland. I know Ireland gave me a home, and I've been there in Ireland for almost 20 plus years. So I went as a bachelor, and then I went back home, married, and I had my kids in Ireland. So Ireland is actually my second home. And I was there in IT industry almost all of my life in Ireland. I started off as a developer in the early stages, and then I moved on into project management. And as the terminologies of product management, program manager, technical program manager, and everything happens, I've actually seen a taste of everything. And at the moment, I am in Seattle, US. We moved here 5 years ago. I moved here again for job perspectives. And so I've been here in the IT again. One of the things that happened for me, just to give the perspective and the conversation for this call today, really is the last 3 years, I've started diverging and investing myself in mental health space.
You also have your MBA in strategy and also a master's in project management, your PMP among so many other credentials. How did being a senior technical program and product manager, in that space, how did you start identifying mental health and mind fitness as a problematic area in the IT sector?
So I think for me, the real time that hit me was almost towards the COVID time. We always used to talk about the burnouts and the stress we have and everything. But I think with the COVID, the social isolation was another big factor. And as I'm a social person, as I was mentioning, all of that, when I had social, you know, connections, that kept me going, even if I had this additional stress and other things. It was kind of being, like for me, when I get social and networking connection, I talk during the day. That used to help me just, take the pressure away, right? But then I think in the isolation space, when COVID hit, it was really, really getting on to me about, oh, now the burnout was really, I can see it. I can feel it. And I think the stress was adding on to it. And that's when I started realizing, hey, you know what? Maybe I haven't been investing on myself a bit, because it looks like it is like I haven't spent time just thinking about what is mental health for me, right? I've been into classes. People have taught me about mental health. We have workshops that were happening about mental health, but I never really stepped back and said, I should invest on it.
And obviously you felt strongly enough about it in that area that you created the coaching platform. Did you start by incorporating that strategy into your how you manage teams first?
I think there were three things that made me realize, like, one is that personal experience I was talking about, to say, you know, there seems to be some mental health thing that I need to take care of, right? That was a personal experience. And the second thing is really when I started talking to people and creating awareness of it. Hey, what do you think about mental health, and how are you preparing yourself? And when I started talking to people around, it was the same feeling, is that, hey, I know about it, but I'm not doing much about it.
Right.
But they all acknowledge it, right? That was that was the thing, common pattern. It's like we all acknowledge there's this mental health, but I'm not really thinking or investing on it. And, yeah, it'll be fine. That's the kind of attitude I was. So that made me think, hey, these two things, like my personal experience and what I'm seeing outside, there is a gap. There's something that, and then I was starting looking at the statistics that made it more interesting for me, because that really blew my mind off. That's where I started. It said 95% of working population have stress in some form.
So
Yeah, and I'm actually, I would like to know what the other 5% do.
yeah, just kind of zombies.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I think it was interesting, because it's that 95%, that means everybody, almost,
Every
almost everybody, right? And the second interesting fact was that only 1 in 3 take care of that mental health illness.
Major.
So more than 50% are not investing on taking care of themselves, even though they know there is stress. Like I talked about my friends and colleagues who just used to, put it under the carpet and keep moving. Majority of them have been doing that. And
Right.
so,
Right. And with that said, I think, there's still that quiet judgment or silent judgment or stigma. We're talking
yes,
about mental health, and so no judgment here, but you got a little snow on top. So with older generations, pre-millennial, Gen Z, I think there was more of that stigma with that generation. So I'm sure it hasn't been all smooth sailing for you in starting a program like this. So what are some of the challenges that you face, not only in identifying what the specific issues are, but overall in bringing mental health to the forefront?
yeah, I think you just hit it on the nail there, Mike, right? Stigma has been a big thing, right? So that's like, for me, like it's about the generation or, not even the generation. If you really look at it, right? I actually also do men's circles. That's one thing that I started doing, because I realized that when I had this mental health issues and when I started doing a lot of this, there seems to be a segment of people who have been kind of left out in that sense, where men have been really going through a lot of challenges, but they never have this space, and they've been trying to be, as strong personalities, and their emotions should be kept inside, and they need to portray themselves as a father, as a, as a leader and everything. And then it just becomes so hard for them. They don't have a place, a vulnerable place where they can come and they can share their emotions and they can actually cry. Right. That was something that when I started doing this, men's circles, that was the first time I really felt so happy and so fulfilled. Like I never felt that even when I got the paycheck. It was more, more happier. Like I was able to see people coming in and sharing their emotions and, learning from each other, and kind of at the end of the sessions, they used to really go away with something fulfilling for them.
Right.
I mean, even that, to your point, breaking the stigma was hard. It wasn't easy. It's
Right.
still there. People don't. So there are a couple of things. There are misconceptions, right? The first thing that people think is when I say mental health, they think it's not, I don't have mental health. I'm fine. Everything is good, right?
Right.
But that misconception is straight away there, because if you have a physical health, you do have a mental health.
Absolutely.
It is about, are you in the good side of it or are you in the bad side of it? And how do you manage it? That is what people don't get. They just think if I say I have some mental, you know, challenges, they think it is bad. I don't think that is bad. That's the thing that we need to really learn. People, hey, you know what? It's okay to talk about feelings, right? And I can see things are changing. It's happening. More people are talking about it. But to your point, there's a lot of work to be done there to break that stigma. And I think one of the things I'm doing, Mike, is just, it's hard to break the stigma, right? So why don't we just try different angles to it? And that's what, rather than me saying, hey, it's a mental health thing, I really want to focus on something called mind fitness.
Right. Right.
So that gives you the perspective to say, I'm not really talking about your mental health. I'm talking about your mind fitness, which is, in essence, the result or outcome is going to be your well being.
Right. Right. And it's something that we find that we can work on, right? Because we all feel like, okay, I'm going to go for a run or a walk or whatever. Fitness is really right there at the forefront now. It's just
Yeah,
that mental part or the mind fitness that you're talking about, and shifting that is great. So
exactly.
so maybe that leads into the next question. And I know the answer to this next question is more in depth than just a few sentences. So, but let's start with an overview on shift left. So it's a term used in software development lifecycle. Can you explain what your shift left principle is in mind fitness and mental health, and how professionals in IT can relate to that process and strategy?
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Yeah. So I think shift left is so close to me and passionate to me. And that's something that, you know, when I was doing this, was going through this challenge and trying to do some research and trying to say, hey, how can we really break this? Right. So one of the things for me was, today people talk about mental crisis, and people leave things until it is a crisis. And then they say, hey, I need to go to a therapist, a counselor. And that is at the, that is when it's too late to realize that, yes, you can do some small things to even not get there. How about we start taking some of these fundamental IT philosophies that we have today and apply it to our own mental health to see if we can benefit from them. And shift was really screaming out loud for me because, what is shift left in, IT terms, right? We used to develop stuff and we used to do things at the end of the cycle before we release. And it used to create a lot of, last minute issues that you were not able to meet the dates, and it wasn't the right way to go about doing things. So what did we do? We started moving things ahead. We prevent, right? We prevent anything going wrong at the last minute. So then I'm saying, you know what? Yeah, there's a clear analogy here to mental health. If we can do like apply the same to our own mental health and say, hey, let us not wait until we hit the crisis. What I'm trying to bring in is with shift left, the thinking of preventative. I'm saying, hey, you know what? How about we do a continuous care of ourselves, continuous and being aware of ourselves, and even continuous learning, right? The interesting part is because I talked about shift left as an IT framework, you can actually achieve that shift left philosophy through the tools and technology or, frameworks that you already know, and it's in your DNA. So that's another shift that I'm bringing in is not just preventative. Saying a philosophy is easy, but having a tool that will make it work for you is the challenge. And I think through my research and through my work with others and, the recent collaborations and everything, I've come up with this framework, which really is innovative framework, which will be tangible for people.
You mentioned a few things there, and obviously life gets in the way. Sometimes we lose sleep, we don't eat well, it just becomes easy to slip into bad habits. I understand you have three foundational pillars to help reach that balance and achieve better mental health and mind fitness. Do you have examples or situations you can share that highlight those three pillars and the mind fitness tools?
Yeah. I'd say so. One of the things, as I said, is okay. Shift left is a philosophy, right? So when we have a philosophy, then the thing is, we need to really understand what areas should I really be investing on to be able to have that balance. To your point, so the three pillars that I kind of alluded to before, but just to expand on that, or first is really self care. I mean, people say, people have this doubt: is self care selfish? But it's not. It's something that you really need to invest on. It's a foundation for you. It's almost like people saying, hey, do you have ego? And most of them say they don't, which is wrong, right? You should have ego. That's you. That's your identity, right? So same way, your self-care is you. You need to take care of yourself. That's your foundation. And so that's my foundational pillar, which then you can build upon that. Once you have to take care of yourself and you focus on your self-care, the next comes the awareness. Being aware of yourself actually could change or manage your emotions in a way that even you would be surprised when you watch back in the scenarios. Like I normally tell this, right? Assume you are in a meeting, which is a highly frictional meeting, and everybody is in their high emotions and everybody is talking over each of them. If you actually did your awareness homework, you would be the person who would actually bring not only yourself to that grounded position, you can actually influence others in the team to bring or get them grounded. And imagine the outcome of that meeting. So the third pillar is really continuous learning. So we talked about, self-care being our foundation, awareness is, building upon that so that you have a building block. And then learning is something, continuous learning is really important because, hey, once you know about yourself, your foundation, and you're aware of things, you really need to be learning things on an ongoing basis so that you could actually be prepared for more scenarios like AI is coming. How do you react to those things? There are so many things. Some days you're overwhelmed, you have to do things and you don't have time to do it. But what comes first? Scrum is basically, what is blocked, what is unblocking, how can you unblock it, how can you move forward? So if you do a Scrum meeting every day, 2 minutes, you are there, you're doing things for yourself, for your well-being. I've been, sharing this in the workshops and to different ITPs, and this has been helping them. Almost 70% of them have said it's been tangible and that they're repeating it. Similarly, there are other tools like for self-care that you can actually do on a, not even a daily basis, every time something happens, right? I'll tell you an example, right? We know API. We all know what API is. So one thing we do when we create or develop this API is we actually start setting conditions to say, hey, what is my parameter input that I'm going to take? What is my parameter output I'm going to give from this API? That's what you define. That's what you write in your spec. But I'm kind of stepping back and saying, that's all great. You're doing it for the project. Actually, you're going into a new team. You're actually working on a new team or a new manager or a new scenario. How do you set those boundaries entering into the project so that all of you are actually building a greater relationship and greater trust and greater bonding?
Right.
We don't do that today.
It is funny how we can often look at taking care of something else that's outside of our body and understand, okay, I need to do this and this and this. But then when it comes to us, we neglect or forget or um, maybe just not even think about it. Right? Is it something that you have seen that has a certain time frame in adapting, or do you see results pretty quickly?
And so the impact seems to start from 1 week to 6 months. And the outcome that they are seeing was that their productivity is increasing and their emotional balance
Huge. Yeah.
is really increased. And so they are more calmer. They're going into meetings expecting how to manage or handle the situation,
Right.
which was, I was like, man, that's what I wanted to hear. Because for me, if you are going into a meeting where you're grounded, as we were talking, it's going to change the tone of the meeting, the collaboration of the meetings. I have a book that's coming up. I'll be sharing at the end, but that book has more tools that you could actually use. I have tools for each of those pillars that I've been talking about. Another one is like a quick example just to share is a compiler, right? So think like a compiler is something that I am actually philosophically following every day. Okay, what is the input? What is the output? Right? Why am I thinking all the additional things that are not required? Right? Let me just process it the way a compiler processes it. Okay, he's saying this. Okay, what is the input? If there's a problem, let's see how to fix it. If it's not a problem, all good. And so putting it through that, I've actually saved a lot of emotional baggage that I used to carry. And taking ownership of myself and saying I correct it the next time. I've actually improving my, process. My emotions are balanced, and I'm actually, no self-doubt and judgments and about myself. That is one thing that used to happen to people, which is we all do that. We are, we self-doubt ourselves. We have actually a lot of judgments and we keep going into that, tunnel of thinking. So this really says, hey, you don't need all those because just think about what your outcome is. That's it. You've thought through it, keep moving.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for that. Did you want to mention any upcoming events you have that people can sign up for and attend? And we'll post them in the credits so that everybody has that information. But is there anything that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm excited. Two things. One, I'm actually publishing my book. So all these tools that I'm talking about, examples I gave is just a small piece of them. I have several of those tools, and those tools will be in the book that I'm publishing. Uh, but I'm excited for that because that's going to really help several of our IT peers to start going and practicing this. Number two, I'm actually doing one-to-one sessions. If people really would like to know how they, they would like to use these tools in their daily life, because I know, you know, some people may prefer workshops in the company's things, but some people may want one-to-ones and stuff like that. So I do that as well. If your company is willing to do a piloting, do reach out to me. That is another thing I would like to do session so that, we can help them, our IT peers to kind of get these tools in their hand. So those would be the two things that I would like to share. Thank you very much for the opportunity and giving me space to share this shift left strategies and the mind fitness so we can all actually invest in ourselves to make millions for our own well-being.
That's so right. Well, Brad, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It was a great pleasure talking with you, and appreciate you sharing your thoughts. Is there any last insights you'd like to leave with our listeners, particularly those like all of us secret fitness.
So yeah, I think the one thing that we can all, leave is with the statement that, hey, you're not alone, and mental health is our priority zero. Mental health is priority zero. Invest in it for your well-being.
Great. Well, thanks so much again, Bharath, and
Yep.
thanks for your time and great talking with you.
Thanks, Mike. Same here. And it was great being part of it.